Hey everyone, it's Megan here from Meghan Makes Do, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet the Tobyn Scarf. This two-color scarf is beginner friendly and pairs perfectly with the Tobyn Hat crochet pattern. Both patterns are available for free on my blog. Follow the links in the description below. For today's tutorial, I am using Lion Brand yarn Re-Spun. This is the bonus bundle, which gives you a little bit of extra yardage. This is a really nice recycled polyester yarn. It's actually super soft. I love working with it. And then we will also be using a size H, which is a 5mm crochet hook. This one is Knitter's Pride, which I got from Jimmy Bean's Wool. Towards the end of our tutorial, you will also need a pair of scissors. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to start our scarf, we want our scarf to be about 12 inches wide. I'm using color A. For me is the color Cider. So whatever color you're using for color A, go ahead and start with that. We're gonna put a slip knot on our hook. And then we're gonna go ahead and chain 44. Okay, so now I have my 44 chains, and for row 1, we're just working a row of single crochet, kind of as a setup row for our scarf. So I'm going to skip the first chain and working into the second chain from the hook. I'm just going to single crochet in each chain all the way across my row. And then one thing I do suggest doing, if you head to the description below, you'll find a link to the free written pattern on my blog. And there you can find all the information that you need. And if you are worried about getting it to be the right size, go ahead and make sure that you make a little gauge swatch first and compare it to the gauge that I have. And then you can either size up or down your hook in order to get the right size scarf. So go ahead and continue single crocheting all the way across for row 1. Okay, so we just got to the end of row 1, and for row 2, I'm going to be starting like my pattern repeat. So we're not going to switch colors here, but at the end of row 2 and every row after that, we will be switching colors. So for row 2, we're going to go ahead and chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turning. The chain 3s in this pattern do count as a stitch. So that's your first stitch of row 2. Then working into the first stitch, we're going to go ahead and double crochet 2. So it's like a half shell here. We're gonna have 3 stitches in that first stitch, just like that. Then we're going to skip 2 and single crochet into the next stitch. Skip 2, and now we're going to work a shell stitch, and the shell stitch for this pattern is 5 double crochet into the same stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to skip 2 and single crochet in the next, skip 2 again, and shell in the next stitch. And then skip 2 and single crochet. And we're just going to repeat that all the way across, making these beautiful shell stitches that are anchored by our single crochets. And we're going to do that until we only have 3 stitches remaining in our row. Okay, so I've gotten to the end and I have 3 stitches remaining. I'm going to skip the last 2 and then work 3 double crochet into the last stitch. And then before I do my last yarn over for my last double crochet, I'm going to go ahead and grab color B, which is Parchment, and we're going to yarn over and draw through that last little bit, switching to color B. Then for row 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and you can kind of tighten up your stitches there. And what we're going to do is we're going to be carrying color A all the way across our row, working around this strand as we go, as we would if we were doing tapestry crochet. So make sure that you're always catching color A's strand when you're doing your stitches. So for row 3, we're going to single crochet into the first stitch, and see how I'm also making sure that the color A strand is over my hook. That way it gets caught up and kind of just blends in with the rest of the scarf. So we're going to single crochet in the first stitch, then we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to double crochet 5 together. So to do that, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, also making sure that we have our strand of color A over our hook, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, and then repeat that 3 more times for a total of 5. So it's almost like we're making little mini double crochets before we finish them off. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus our beginning loop. So you should have 6 loops on your hook, and then you're going to yarn over and draw through all the loops on your hook, just like that. And again, we've constantly been carrying and working around this strand of color A. Then we're going to chain 2 and single crochet into the next stitch. And then we're just going to repeat that all the way across. So again, chain 2 and then double crochet 5 together, making sure again to always be working around the strand of color A. And then we're going to chain 2 and single crochet in the next stitch. And then what I like to do is kind of just tug on my piece a little bit, just to make sure that that strand of color A isn't bunching up my work. So go ahead and repeat that all the way across your row. Okay, so I've gotten to the end of my row. I'm working my last double crochet 5 together. I'm gonna chain 2, and we're gonna end with our last single crochet into the top chain 3. So I'm going to insert my hook into the top of the chain 3, also making sure to be working around color A strand. But on my last yarn over for this single crochet, I'm going to switch and work my last yarn over with color A. And then again, just kind of give it a little tug so you make sure that the strand that you carried through is not bunching up your work. So we switched back to color A, and then we're just going to repeat rows 2 and 3 until we have 141 rows. Again, switching at the end of each row on our last stitch and carrying our yarn throughout. So I'm gonna chain 3 to start a row 2 repeat, and then I like to just kind of tug on the color B yarn, and when I turn, make sure that it's coming with me, behind me. Okay, so I've wrapped this around, and then I'm going to start my row 2 repeat, working 2 double crochets into the first stitch, making sure I'm also working around the carried yarn. And then I'm going to skip 2, which is the chain stitches here. I know sometimes it can look like we should be working here, but the top of our double crochet 5 together is actually right here. So skip 2, which is the chains, and then work a single crochet into the next stitch, which is the top of the double crochet 5 together. Then we're going to skip the 2 chains again, and into this single crochet we're going to work a shell stitch. Okay, and again, just always make sure you're working around the carried yarn. Skip the 2 chains and single crochet into the next. Skip 2 and shell. And again, we're going to repeat this all the way across until we have 3 stitches remaining, just as we did before. So you'll know that all of your even rows are going to be worked in color A, and all of your odd rows will be worked in color B. So go ahead and let's finish off row 4, which is a row 2 repeat, and then I'll show you one more row 3 repeat before I just show you the end. Okay, we're at the end of row 4, and we have 3 stitches remaining. So again, we're going to skip 2, which are the 2 chains, and then we're going to work 3 double crochet into the last stitch, making sure to work around our carried yarn. And then we're going to switch back to color B on this last yarn over of our last double crochet. So switch to color B, pull tight. We're going to chain 1 and turn, making sure to bring color A up behind our work. And then we're going to do, for row 5, it's going to be a row 3 repeat. So we're going to single crochet in the first stitch, chain 2, and then we're going to work our double crochet 5 together. Again, always making sure that we are working around our carried yarns. Okay, and then chain 2 and work a single crochet in the next stitch. Chain 2 and double crochet 5 together again. So like I said, we're just going to be continuing to repeat rows 2 and 3, changing color as we go at the end of each row in that last stitch of each row. And then again, it can be helpful just to kind of give, at the end of each row, give your piece a little tug just to make sure that carried yarn isn't bunching up your work. And then we're just going to continue doing this until you have a total of 141 rows. You'll end on a row 3 repeat, which you'll be using color B with, and then I'll show you how to finish off the end of your scarf. Okay, so here we are. I've just finished 141 rows. So I'm ending on a row 3 repeat here. And just before I get to my last yarn over on my last stitch, I'm going to switch to color A. And then we're gonna chain 1 and turn. And you can obviously adjust the length of your scarf here by either adding or subtracting rows, however you want to do it. I don't need to carry the parchment, my color B, across this time because this is my last row. And what we're going to do is just work single crochets all the way across into each stitch. So I like to go into the chain stitches. You can work into or you can work around them. It's totally up to you how you want to do it. But we're just going to be finishing off the bottom of our scarf using color A and working single crochets in each stitch. So continue to do that all the way across your row, and then you'll fasten off and weave in your ends, and I'll show you how to add fringe. Okay, so I just finished the last stitch of my row, and I'm just gonna go ahead and fasten off, leaving a tail for seaming in, and then we can also cut off our end over here for color B. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my tapestry needle to weave in these ends, and then I'll show you how to cut lengths of color A so that we can add some fringe to the bottom edges of our scarf. Okay, so now that we've finished the main part of the scarf, it's time to add our beautiful fringe to the bottom on both of the short sides of the scarf. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use just the color Cider, color A, for my fringe. And I'm using a tape measure. You can use a solid ruler. This does not have to be perfect. Each strand does not have to be exactly the same because we're going to trim it up at the end. But I'm going to cut 17 inches. So 17-inch length strands because we're going to be folding them in half for our fringe. And since we're tying knots, so you want to have a little bit of extra length, and then we can always trim the ends when we're done. So we're going to be making 8 little groups of fringe, and each group we're going to want 8 17-inch strands of yarn. So go ahead and start cutting. That means that we're going to need 64 strands for each side of our scarf. So take your time with this. Sometimes I like to just use my first length, line it up with the end, pull it straight across, and cut that way. So whatever you prefer, whatever method you have for cutting fringe, go ahead and cut 64 17-inch strands for each side. So a total of 128 strands of yarn in color A, each one about 17 inches long. And when we're done with that, come back here and I'll show you how to attach them. Okay, so now I have 8 groups of 8, and we're going to be attaching them along the bottom part of our scarf. So here I've already attached one side here. So I'm going to show you how to attach it to this side, which is our ending side. So let me go ahead and move some of these piles out of the way. Okay, so we're gonna take one of our bundles and try to line up the ends as close as possible, and then fold it in half. So the ends all kind of come together. Again, it doesn't have to be exact or perfect because we're going to trim it at the end. And then up here where it's folded in half, then we're going to grab our crochet hook, and in the bottom, the first or last, I guess, stitch of our last row, this is the right side, with the right side facing up. We're going to stick our hook from the wrong side to the front side, grab the middle of our group, and carefully pull it through. And then we're going to take these ends and we're going to pull them through the loop and pull tight to kind of knot it in place, just like that. Okay. And then we are going to be putting one on either end, and then we're going to fit the other 6 in between, and we're going to put them in between our double crochet 5 togethers. So right here, so we're going to put the next one. So grab your next group, fold it in half, inserting the hook in between, grab the center, and pull it through if we can. Go through the bottom here. think I got it all, and then we can grab the ends, pull through, and pull tight. Just like that. And then continue grabbing groups, folding them in half, and attaching them in between. Just like this. So we'll have 8 groups attached when we get to the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 right here on the edge. Now you'll notice that on the other end of our scarf, we're going to be attaching them where the shell stitches are, the base of the shell stitches and along the edges. So go ahead and attach all 8 of your groups all the way along your scarf, putting your last one in the last stitch of this row. Okay, so now that I've got all 8 of my bunches attached, we're going to be separating them out and tying our knots to kind of give a little extra detail to our fringe. So the first one, we're going to use all of the first bunch here, and then we're going to split this next bunch in half. So make sure that you have 2, 4, 6, 8 strands from this second bunch going over into the first one. Bring those together, and we're just going to make a simple little knot here. Make sure we get all of our ends through. There we go. And then you want your knot to end up being about 1.5 inches from the edge of your scarf. And you can tie these loosely to start, and then you can tighten them up once you get them all together. Okay, so now we're going to take this second half and attach it to the next half of this one. Again, making sure that we have 2, 4, 6, 8 strands. So bring these 2 together and then tie another knot. Making sure we get all those strands through. There we go. And then kind of just line it up as close as possible with our first knot here. And again, split in half, making sure that we have 8 strands, and then tie another knot. Keep those as lined up as possible. And we're going to continue working that all the way across, ending our last knot by making this whole last group part of the last knot, just as we did on this side here. And then we can kind of adjust our knots, pulling them tighter or making them looser, and trying to get them as close to lined up together as possible. Okay, so here you can see I finished that off. I may want to adjust some of these knots a little bit, but you get the point. And then when you're all finished, you can give your fringe a light steam and then trim your fringe off the edge to make it as even as possible. And then you'll be all done with your Tobyn scarf.